All right, for years, this has been the white whale of Dalal Street, right? The public listing of the National Stock Exchange of India. We're talking about the absolute backbone of the country's financial markets. And now, after a decade of waiting, it looks like this giant is finally waking up. So let's get into it.
This quote from the Financial Express really hits the nail on the head. It perfectly sums up the vibe right now. After all the speculation, all the delays, we've moved past the if. It's not a matter of if anymore, it's just when.
And let me tell you, it has been a long wait. We're talking about a 10-year saga, really, packed with regulatory drama, intense scrutiny, and all sorts of hurdles that kept India's biggest stock exchange from listing on its own turf.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around why this IPO is such a massive deal, we first need to understand the sheer scale of the NSE. Think of it like this. It's not just some marketplace. It's the absolute engine powering the whole Indian financial world. Check this out. This one number says it all. For 5 years in a row, the NSE has been the world's #1 derivatives exchange by the amount of trading. I'm not just talking about in India, I mean globally. This thing is a beast on the world stage. And the companies listed on it, we're talking about a combined market cap of a mind-boggling $5.13 trillion. To put that in perspective, that massive number makes the NSE the fifth largest stock exchange in the world. Now this chart, wow, it really paints a picture of just how dominant the NSE is here in India. In the cash market, it has almost 94% of the pie. But then you look at equity futures, 99.9%. I mean, that's not just market leadership, that's basically a monopoly. It's the whole shebang.
So the takeaway here is simple. The NSE and its famous Nifty 50 index, they aren't just parts of the market. They're the very plumbing, the beating heart of the entire system.
All right, so if the NSE is this huge, this important, what on earth could hold up its own IPO for 10 whole years? Well, that brings us to the juicy part of the story, a huge regulatory scandal. So the big roadblock was something called the co-location case. Basically, the accusation was that the NSE was letting certain high-frequency traders get an unfair advantage, like a secret fast lane. They could put their servers right next to the exchange's systems, giving them a split-second edge. This whole thing cast a massive shadow and just slammed the brakes on the IPO. So let's walk through how this all played out. Back in 2016, the first IPO plan gets filed. But boom, the co-location case hits, and everything just grinds to a halt for years. The ice finally started to thaw in August 2024 when the NSE went back to the regulator, SEBI, for a new green light. The real game changer, though, was in January 2026 when SEBI basically agreed to settle the case. And just a month later, the board made it official. The IPO is back on.
Okay, so with all that drama in the rearview mirror, let's talk about the IPO itself. What do we actually know about this thing? All right, first up, and this is a key point you got to understand, this is a 100% offer for sale. That means the NSC itself isn't raising any new money. What this really is a chance for the early, long-time investors to cash out and sell their shares to the public.
And believe me, those shareholders are sitting on a gold mine. I mean, just look at these numbers. In just 3 years, revenue shot up from about 12,700 crores to over 19,000 crores. But the profits? Even crazier. They rocketed from around 7,300 crores to over 12,000 crores. That is one seriously profitable machine. And this chart here, it just makes it crystal clear. You can literally see that powerful upward climb year after year. This is the kind of consistent growth that gets big investors really, really excited. So the big question is, what's a company like this actually worth? A company with this much power and these kinds of profits? Well, based on what we're seeing in the private unlisted market, we're looking at a valuation of around $60 billion. That's huge. It would instantly be one of the most valuable companies in India. But you know what? This IPO is about so much more than just a big price tag. Its importance goes way beyond that. This is a landmark moment for the entire Indian financial system. So why is this such a big deal? Let's break it down. For one, it finally lets those early investors, we're talking big names like LIC and SBI, cash in on their investment. Two, it creates a brand new yardstick for valuing other companies that are part of the market's plumbing. Three, being public means more eyes on you. It forces a whole new level of transparency and good governance. And last but not least, it's a massive signal to the rest of the world that India's capital markets have truly arrived.
Of course, you can't really talk about the NSE without bringing up its old rival, the BSE, the Bombay Stock Exchange. Look, the NSE is the king when it comes to liquidity and derivatives. It's where the big institutional money plays. The BSE, on the other hand, is Asia's oldest exchange. It has its own niche, listing smaller companies, and it's been making a bit of a comeback in certain options lately.
So let's zoom out and see where that $60 billion valuation puts the NSE on the world map. And as you can see, it's right up there, shoulder to shoulder with the Hong Kong Exchange. It's in the same conversation as giants like the CME Group and NASDAQ. This is a top-tier, global player, no doubt about it.
So when you boil it all down, here's what we've got. After a decade-long wait, the gatekeeper of India's market is finally opening its own gates to the public. This is a huge, huge moment, leaving us with one massive question for the future. Now that the very engine of the market is going public itself, what does the next chapter even look like for India's financial markets?